Hey little darlings, what is up? Welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm, where I am currently in my kitchen. Ooh, I have my little tripod thing. My camera's on it. The magnet on the bottom called a spoon. From my clean dishes on the counter because our dishwasher's still broken. The part is ordered. Man, nothing like a real food kitchen and a broken dishwasher to make you realize how thankful you are for modern conveniences. I've been reading this cookbook. This is by Sean Brock. You'll notice I've been referencing a lot of cookbooks and videos lately. I'll get to that. Fall makes me very like creative, turning inward, trying to like learn new things, inspired, all of that. This guy though is awesome, from South Carolina, I believe. He's like kind of a big deal around here. Anyway, he shares a lot of South Carolina history in his books. And then there's a recipe in here I'm wanting to make, and I'm about to run out to the garden. I got a puny boy here on the couch. Hey, dude.
Hi.
What are you about to watch?
A movie I've never seen called Secondhand Lion.
This was actually suggested by some of our viewers when I was telling them I was showing you guys great 90s movies. So you can either thank them or tell them you didn't like it after you watch it.
Okay.
Ezra requested that I show you guys this little sculpture he made. I'll set this down. Out of polymer clay. I just baked it, so it's solidified. It's from a game that he plays, but I thought it was pretty good. So I got the call today from the school that Ezra had gotten sick, which several kids in his class got sick, and I think he probably is puny, but also I am very much a sympathetic vomiter. Like, no one throws up alone around me. And I'm afraid Ezra's my child that got that trait. Like, I have such a weak stomach. Obviously I don't include that on YouTube videos because gross, but if several kids in his class got sick and threw up, he may not actually be sick, even if he did also throw up. Out to the garden. I'm savoring every time that I get to run out here and harvest from this wild, beautiful garden, because I know that its days are numbered as we get closer to winter. These tomato plants are pretty sickly, and I'm not doing much with them. I have not been like trying to combat anything because we're at the end of the season. We've harvested a ton of fruit. So at this point I kind of just let everything go and like glean what I can from it. But right now I'm going to pick, I want about 5 pounds of green tomatoes off of these plants. Now, if I were to leave these, if the plants stayed healthy enough, they would get to the point that these would ripen. But because there's a lot of disease, there's no guarantee that this stuff would ever get to that point without the fruit becoming really blemished. So right now I'm just gonna kind of grab the larger green tomatoes and make this pickled green tomato recipe. Sometimes green tomato recipes like this that are pickled are called chow. There are hornworms all over these plants. There's one. I saw another one, I don't know where it went. It was somewhere in this vicinity. I'm just gonna leave them. I guess maybe the right thing to do would be to destroy all of these hornworms so that they're not reproducing for future generations to plague my season. But, you know, it's all good. It's kind of my approach to farming, is that it's all good. Everything that's created in some way is good, and sometimes I have to manage populations in order to get my harvest, but like these hornworms are just on these plants that I don't want anymore, so I'm just gonna let them stay. I am grabbing green fruits that are a little on the larger side, just because they'll be more developed inside. That one has blushed just slightly, so if I actually left this on my counter it would turn, but I'll go ahead and use it green. Green tomato chow or pickled green tomatoes is a good thing to make whenever you're out of time. Like if you've got a bunch of green fruits on your plants that haven't blushed yet, you can go ahead and process them green. Also, of course, there are the legendary southern fried green tomatoes, which that's any variety of unripe tomato. You can slice them and fry them. In fact, in that Sean Brock cookbook, he was saying that Oh, there's buggies in this one. He was saying that these pickled green tomatoes, he does them in like slices so that they can then be fried after the fact. Thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I don't think I've ever had a fried pickled green tomato before. Look at that beauty. Still opening a few flowers here and there. Y'all, this garden is so wild and full. It's weedy, but it's also very lovely, don't you think? The killdeers are hollering at me because I'm headed out here. Alright, this is probably more than I need. But that way if I get in the kitchen and some of these have yucky spots inside of them, I'll still have plenty. You know how when you go, say you go to a restaurant, really good restaurant, and you get a dish and you taste it and you realize how good it is and you're like, oh, this is so good, and you start eating it. But then you get down to the last few bites and you slow down because you want to savor it because it's almost over. That is what September and October are for me in the garden. I've gone through the year and it's been great. It's been a little overwhelming at times, the season. But when September comes and October comes and everything is sort of dwindling down, it's all wild, you know, the harvest is coming down in volume, so it's less overwhelming. I always have this thing that overcomes me, this feeling of like, slow down and savor it. And I have learned through my years of gardening to really embrace and appreciate restful seasons. I don't struggle with the winter the way that I did 10 years ago because, you know, I've learned to fully be present in the hard seasons and like give my whole self to it, so that once winter comes around, I'm ready for the break. Don't get me wrong, it's still very bittersweet, and by February I am chomping at the bit for the garden again. But with that, with like fully embracing the restful season, fully embracing the hard, demanding season of summer, there in the middle is this slow down. The last few bites are on your plate and it's about to come to an end, and you're gonna think fondly of it when it's over. So just savor. And that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just savoring. So I've been going through some of my favorite cookbooks, finding different recipes to just fully enjoy the fact that I can be flipping through a book and go, oh, I have that stuff in my yard right now. Now, that's dwindling. You know, I don't have tons of tomatoes. I can come out and grab a few and make a recipe. I'm not doing any like big projects of preserving the stuff as much, but things like being able to say, oh, I've got green tomatoes in abundance. I can come out and grab enough to make that recipe. That's me savoring. I think it's worth savoring, don't you? I think also the onset of fall just makes me super introspective anyway. Like, it's just changing seasons kind of always do that to me. I have that tendency of like wanting to slow down, be in the kitchen, really focus on like making my home feel very inviting and enveloping even. I love really turning inwards as we go into the winter. I used to not transition with the seasons. I used to really struggle in the winter, and I would start the winter out feeling depressed because the garden was dying, and you know, I love being outside so much that shifting to, you know, an inward season was very difficult. And partially I think for me, learning to embrace that has been like on purpose viewing that winter season as a treat and something that I look forward to. What did I tell you all about these sweet potato vines? I told you they were going to go crazy and take over by about this time. And this thing it's going to just keep growing. It's eating my chair right now. So I've got all these herbs here, all this peppermint, all the flowers, and right here in this garden smells so good. I don't know exactly what it is. Something herbal and wild, but I wish you could smell it. I came over here because I saw a hummingbird, but I missed it. I'm just hanging out with my green tomatoes. I am curious what you do to embrace the changing of the seasons. I do the same thing in the spring, you know. Of course, then I'm desperate to get out of the gray, dreary winter and get back into the garden. But, you know, I start seeds really early. I spend a lot of time in the greenhouse kind of transitioning and getting myself ready for, you know, the butt-busting work that is spring and summer on a farm. And I sort of have to like gear up towards it. And I feel like I've almost had to learn how to do the same thing for the winter. And it's like gearing down. And so this time of year rolls around, you know, we get into mid-September, which for some of you, you're already like staring your first frost down. Like, you know, it's time to embrace a more inside inward time. But for me, I start spending more time cooking fun things in the kitchen. You know, I'll do the necessity as far as preserving through the summer, but a lot of things I'll try to save, even like tomatoes go in the freezer until I can process them in the fall. I enjoy being in the kitchen more when it's starting to cool off, and it's still really hot here. So this is not something that I'm doing because of the way it feels outside. It's just the time of year. It's downshift time. It's time to gear into the new season. It's time to get inspired about cooking and making delicious things, about, you know, creating the atmosphere of my home. So I'm curious, like, what do you do? For me, it's reading cookbooks. That's something that I do a lot of right now. I usually pick crafting back up. I've been crocheting again the last couple of weeks because I know it's that time of year. Like during the winter is whenever I get more stuff like that done. I read more paper books. I listen to audiobooks all summer because I'm working with my hands, but as I go into the winter and it's getting dark earlier, I'll tend to read more paper books. It doesn't feel bad like it used to. Winter used to feel really bad for me. It was not a fun time for me. Learning to celebrate the season for what it is, embrace it, and also give myself what I need to do that, to celebrate it and embrace it, has changed a lot for me. Also tend to like watch more shows and movies and stuff like that. I've been showing my kids movies here the last couple weeks, and that's really more of a fall winter thing. I'll catch up on my shows. It's funny, like new seasons of the shows that I watch, which I have a few that I watch, will come out, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch that in September. I'll watch that in October, November. I'll get around to it. What do you have?
Puffballs.
Oh, nice. Let me see.
Well, they're old. I'm just going to ride around and puff them and spread the spores.
Planting puffballs.
I'm planting puffballs. I'm not planting puffballs.
Yeah, cool. Y'all, look at Will gardening his mushrooms. he's just going around squeezing that puffball all over so that more will grow. Will's so fun. I just have so much fun with him. He just loves growing stuff, and I totally relate. 1 hour later, I'm in my kitchen and I've got my tomatoes. I did not do the slices like the cookbook. I actually cut them into more like bite-sized pieces, which is the chow I'm familiar with. He said in this book you can fry those slices, but I find pieces a little bit easier to can as far as getting more into a jar. So I consider it an incredible talent, specifically when I'm canning and a recipe calls for 3 pounds or whatever that doesn't necessarily equate into jar sizes. I consider it an accomplishment when I can nail the amount. So I picked a little extra than what I needed, but I cut up almost the exact amount to fill my pint jars, which is what I'm starting with. Because I picked extra, I may do one more batch after I can these. We'll just have to see. But here I have my brine on the stove. It's simmering. I already brought it to a boil and then let it simmer. And then my water's heating up to run the water bath. So this chow is like pickled, but it has some sugar in it. And it's kind of more a garnish. I mean, you could just eat it on its own. But something like this, it's like kind of sweet but acidic, cuts heavier food really well. So if you're doing something that's like anything that's going to be fried or any sort of braised or roasted meats, and then if you have something kind of heavy on the side like roasted potatoes or mashed potatoes or something, you can do a little bit of this chow with it, just sort of have a little acidity. So I'm feeling pretty happy with it. My kids are about to walk in the door though, so I'm going to help them with homework while I run the scanner.
This smells familiar and it's not a good smell. What happened?
I'm just making some pickled green tomatoes.
This has happened before.
Yeah.
Ah, yummy.
Yeah, you don't mind the smell of pickles?
I love it. Wait, there's Tinkerbell.
Hey Ash, what's up? Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.